Hello everyone and welcome. It's already the beginning of October. I can't believe how quickly this year is flying by. I'm going to be playing with this brand new Stamp of the Month, Owl of Us, and this Stamp of the Month has a little bit of a change to what you're probably normally used to. I'll just bring in the catalogue so you can have a look at it. This is the September-October catalogue. Last month I featured some stamp layering and inking techniques with thoughtful tokens, which was the September Stamp of the Month, and that's no longer available. So we move on to October and we've got this super cute owl set. Now there's a little bit of a difference with Stamp of the Months now. Every now and then, close to my heart, are going to feature them where they come with coordinating thin cuts or dies. Those of you who are a VIP, you can still add this stamp set for free when you spend $80, but you also have the option of adding in the thin cuts. So if your order qualifies, then you can choose whether or not you want to add the thin cuts. Now normally this stamp set with the thin cuts is worth $67.50, but you can purchase those thin cuts for just $41. So this is a really good option. You can choose whether or not you want the thin cuts. If you just want the stamp set for free, that's all you have to get, but you've got the option of adding the thin cuts. The same works for online customers. If you're not a VIP, you can add the stamp set to your cart for $9 and you have the option of adding it to your cart with the thin cuts. These aren't too hard to fussy cut out, but I decided that I wanted to get the thin cuts because I do love having that option. It means that I can run the thin cut through several times and pop it up if I want to without using foam tape. It also means I can make very cute peekaboo cards. So the other thing I'm working with today are some layered stencils. Currently it is National Stamping Month and there are 2 layered stencils patterns available. I've got the A2 size, or the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card size in front of me here. One is the plaid card front stencil and the other is the quadrant stencil, but you can also purchase these in a slimline format as well, but I'm working with A2 cards today. So these are available during September right through to end of October while stocks last, and I'm going to show you a couple of cards showing options with how to use these layered stencils. In our Essentials catalogue, which runs for an entire year, we also have a lot of stencils in that. So I've picked out the stencils from Stencil Pack 2. You can see here, these are the card front ones, but of course you can use these on scrapbooking layouts. They don't just have to be with scrapbooking pages. And these ones here are the pack that I'm working with today, and they are layered as well. In the artwork here, you'll see that this one here actually forms a heart. So you ink up one side, you rotate it, line it up, and you can ink up the other and you can have a two-toned heart. And this floral one here, that actually layers on top of itself as well, so that you can ink up the floral element and then ink up the centers. If you didn't want to ink up the centers, you could use this standalone, and you can definitely use this standalone and create a spotted background that would be suitable for Christmas cards and also for any type of fun like splash technique. You can rotate this and create overlapping little circles if that's what you want to do. So I'm just going to start with the quadrant stencil. I think this is the trickiest one. You can do this in so many different ways, and you might notice I've got these grey mats in front of me here. This is actually a non-slip type media grip mat. It's a tonic Tim Holtz mat, and it actually comes in a 10.5 by 12 inch sheet, but I've pretty much cut it in half so that it does double duty for me here. I'm going to work with 2 different card size panels today, so I'm going to start off with this one. It's 3 3/4 by 5 inches. This becomes a non-slip mat here. I love working on the all-purpose mat, but sometimes when I'm doing stencils, it's really good to be able to use these and things don't slip around. So this mat is excellent for that purpose. So now I can just put my stencil over top and line this up so that it's nice and square, even though I'm not going to go right to the edges with all of my stenciling, but you can see that grips on really, really well. And I'm going to bring in the color of the year. This is Journey. And when I put that on top of this grip mat, that's not going to move either when I use my blending brush. Now I'm going to use a very light hand with all of my stenciling. So I'm just going to use a blending brush here, and you can see I don't even have to hold my ink pad here. It just grips on so nicely. So now I'm just going to tap this off. I want a very subtle look. And this is where these grip mats work really, really well. And you can see I'm just doing a very light, I'm not even going all the way around and making sure that it's all covered. So that's step 1. I have labeled my stencils. So now I'm going to come in with step 2. And I'm going to line this up so that it's centered over this card panel, and I can use these areas here that aren't inked up to line them up between these other quadrant pieces. So now that I've got that all nicely lined up, I'm just going to ink up again, tap off, and I'm going to do just one color for this. I'm not going to do a 4-color. You can definitely do 4 colors on this. I suggest you go and have a look on the website. There are a lot of examples showing different colorways with this, but I'm going for a monochromatic look. So I've used the first stencil and the second, and then I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees, line this up again. I haven't cleaned this off because I'm using the same ink. There's not as much real estate here for it to grip, so I am having to hold this just a little bit, just lightly. And now I'm going in to fill in the rest of the quadrants. Again, with a fairly light hand, I can peel that back and have a look, and I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to come in with my second stencil, rotate that 180 degrees, and I can fill in the gaps. You can leave this just like this. You don't have to fill up all of these quadrant pieces, but I've decided that that's what I want to do for these cards that I'm working on today. So now I'm going to come in with the last little bit of inking. I'm making sure I'm not going all the way to the edges on all of it, and just a light colouring and blending, because this is going to be like a spotlight for where my little owl is going to sit. And I really love how that looks. It's a beautiful soft look. It's almost like a tulip there in the middle, and you could definitely do partial inking with this to create a series of tulips to go across the bottom of a layout or on a card. So for the next card panel, I'm going to use that same size. I'm going to use 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So now I'm going to come in with this diagonal one. There are so many options that you can use for this. You can use it to create a simple diagonal like that. You can use it to create a diagonal and then have larger ones in between. You can use it so that you can stencil over top of the thicker area of the diagonal line with the smaller stripe of the diagonal. There are so many ways that you can use this. I'm going to use it as intended for today. So I'm just going to line this up to have my card panel basically in the center under here. And I'm going to use Journey ink again, and I'm going with a very light hand. And you can see I'm not going all the way to the edges. I don't want to go all the way to the edges with this. And that looks gorgeous. So now I'm going to bring in the second one, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Not quite go all the way to the edges. You can see I've got some pounce marks here, but that's okay because now I'm going to bring in this stencil, and what I need to do is clean it off before I use it again. Because I want to make the plaid, I need to flip that over so that the stripes go in the other way. If I left the ink on this stencil, it's going to transfer once I start inking up. So now that I've done the stripes this way, I can rotate this and put the stripes the other way. And the reason why I love this media grip mat is I don't have to use a whole heap of tape every time. So that's cutting out that step, which means that I can craft a little bit faster. I don't have to reposition the tape at all. I can just keep working with this now that I've cleaned it off. So I do love how this sticky sort of mat works with that. Now I think I got this for around $20 from a craft expo. I know that you can order them online in Australia. So if you just look for the Tonic Media Grip Mat, it should come up with where you can purchase that within Australia. I quite love how that looks, and I'm going to clean up my stencils, and then I'm going to bring in these other ones here to play with. For the next card panel, I'm going to bring in this floral stencil here that I showed you earlier. I'm going to ink it up with Royal and Sundance, but I'm going to use a very light hand with Royal because I want the centers to show as yellows. I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment here and hope that these colors work. I'm going to bring in this piece of scratch paper again because I'm going to tap off quite a bit. I don't want to make it too strong, so I'm just having a little bit of a play with this color so that I know that it's going to work with the yellow. So I'm just going to ink this up. I'm going all the way over this panel. I'm not doing the partial inking like I did in the last one. So I can peel this back, have a little look, and just ink up a little bit more where I need it to. Now, Royal is a very strong color. So as you can see from where I'm tapping off here, it's quite vibrant. But if you use a very light hand, you can get a subtle look to it. And because with the stenciling I've gone over the edges of where the card is, I'm just going to use a baby wipe and wipe around the edges of this just to clean off any residual ink that I might have transferred to the mat. I don't want to pick that up when I'm doing the next step. Bring in Sundance. And I'm just going to wipe this to dry it and then line up this center part here. It's fairly easy to see where this goes. If you line up the large florals, you can see that it's all falling into place with the smaller florals. So now I'm going to bring in Sundance. I'm not sure how strong I have to go with this, so I'm just going to do a fairly light inking and have a little peek, and I really love how that's looking. So I am going to tap off rather than coming in too strong. I can always add more ink if I want to. I can't take ink away. And I think this is going to be a really sweet little panel to put the owls on top of. Just need to have a little bit more of the Sundance coming through on those little ones there and up the top as well. So that looks a little bit sweet, I think. I do love how these stencils are working and layering up so beautifully. And I think I'm going to stick with this Royal and Sundance combination for the other card panel, which means I don't actually have to clean up in between because I've already got the Sundance on here. It's not going to transfer if I do this. And this is me trying to work smarter and to get quite a few panels done in one go because I do want to send off some thank you cards. So I'm going to tap off, go in with the Sundance, and this is half a heart. I might go a little bit stronger with this one because I think that will work quite nicely. I do love how you get depth and shade with this, with the ink coming off the edge of the stencil. So I can have a little peel back and a little look, and I love how that looks. It's looking so super sweet. So now I want to bring in some of the Royal, but what I need to do first is to clean off this stencil. And I do need to flip this over. So this is the way I had it lined up before. If I'd flip that straight over, I would transfer some of that Sundance ink onto my base here, and I don't want that to happen. Now I haven't actually used this stencil either before, so I'm just going to try rotating it by flipping it over, and that will match up perfectly with what I've already inked up. So now that's all nicely lined up. I'm going to get the Sundance away and bring in the Royal, and once again I'm going to tap off and go with a light hand to start with, just to build up the colour if I need to. I can already tell that I love this combination of the purple with the yellow. So let's have a little look, and you can see that's a beautiful soft tone of the Royal. So I'm going to go in a little bit heavier because I want this to be a little bit more vivid. Once again, I'm not pressing too hard at all. So going slow and steady works much better than going in with a heavy hand to start with. And I'm going to call that done. Such a sweet little panel. And I think this will work really well on a scrapbook layout. So stay tuned. I'm going to bring in a scrapbook layout with some of this stenciling because I think it would be fun to try these card front stencils on an actual scrapbook layout. Here are the card panels that I've done so far. I love the soft tones of the Journey, but I really, really love this purple and yellow combination. So I've decided that I am going to bring back in this quadrant one and line this up here so that I can do some layers with the quadrant and use the Sundance and Royal ink again. I just want to see how well this is going to play together with this type of stencil. So maybe this video is going to be a little bit longer than what I thought it was going to be. So I hope you don't mind, but I want to do a little bit of experimenting with these two colors. So stencil number one is going to be my Sundance one, and remember when I did it the first time, all I had to do was pick it up and rotate it and line it up. So I'm going to keep that without cleaning it off because I'm going to come back in with some Sundance ink, and now I'm going to bring in Royal and stencil number two, and I can see that that lines up here like this. And once again I'm doing the entire panel. So this is the 3" by 4 1/4" panel. So I'm just coming in with Royal. It's such a good purple, and you can get so many different shades with it by using a blending brush. If you use a heavier hand, you get the gorgeous rich color of Royal. If you use a lighter hand, you can get this very soft toned purple. So it really does depend how much you ink up, how much you tap off, or if you don't tap off at all, you can go straight in if you want a really rich color. That's looking really, really pretty. I love this color combination. But now I think you can see I've got royal ink going around the outside here. So if I come in with the Sundance, I'm going to contaminate the color as I'm blending it because it's going to pick it up from underneath the stencil. So I'm going to come back in with Sundance. So remember, I inked that up with the one at the top here. So now all I need to do is rotate this 180 degrees and line this up. So I'm going for a two-tone one with this quadrant rather than a monochromatic look. I'm going to tap off again and come in with Sundance. So that's enough for that one. And now I come back in with Royal. I've got my stencil that I've labeled number 2 that fits perfectly this way. I just need to rotate it and line it up. And once you play with these sorts of layering stencils, it's just so much fun. The more you play with them, the more combinations you're going to discover and the more use you're going to get out of them. Stencils are fairly inexpensive to add to your craft supply, and they really are extremely popular now, especially layered stencils. So here's the beautiful quadrant circles. You can see I've lined it up pretty well on this one. The colors look amazing. I can't wait to put a fun little owl on top of that. I'm going with a really heady hand for this one. I just want to show you how vibrant you can go with these. So lots of ink, no tapping off, and straight in onto my card panel piece. This is another 3" by 4¼ piece. And you can see already the difference between tapping off and using a heavier hand. So look how vibrant that is. Just from one ink pad, I've created a really soft yellow, a mid-tone yellow, and now a really deep yellow just from using Sundance. So now I'm going to come in with Royal, no tapping off. And you can see how vivid that is. I'm inking my brush up quite well, and I'm applying this with a fairly heavy hand. Now, with this longer one, I've found that it's easier to go in the one direction rather than backwards and forwards, because this is fairly thin, this little piece here, and I don't want it moving around too much. So keep going in the same direction and it won't move around on you. Now, let's have a little look at how that looks. That is so bright and so vivid. So now I need to clean this off so that I can rotate it over. I don't want the ink from this side bleeding onto my panel. But look how vibrant that is. What a difference there is between the color tones. I just love that inks give you that whole range of flexibility. I love that ink pads can just make such a difference depending on how you use them. So now I'm going to clean all this up and get some owls colored in, and then I'll be back with the final cards. Before I put these onto card bases, I do want to add a little bit of splatter. So I'm just going to create a little bit of a puddle here. Just going to get my bone folder. And these splatters are a little bit darker than what my actual inking is. And that's fine. I just wanted to add a little bit of a splatter background for these little owl images to sit on. So now I'm going to bring in the other panels that I've done with the Royal and the Sundance. And for this one, I'm going to put some gold splatter on them. And I've got my Zurataki watercolor paints here. So I'm just having a look at the colors here. So the good thing about these is you can take these out of the packet and just work with that little inkwell. I've got my little cheap spray bottle here. I'm just going to put a little bit of water in there, bring in my fan brush, and mix that up a little bit. And then I'm going to splatter some gold splatters onto here. If I need to put any more water in, I can do that. It looks absolutely stunning on this vibrant one. Actually, I might just put a little bit of water onto my brush and puddle that up a little bit more. And I'm going to set my panels aside to dry, and then I'm going to be back with my owls and the card assembly. I'm just going to leave my all-purpose mat down here so there's a bit of a contrast between the card bases and my desk. I want these to really pop when I'm showing them to you. So you can see these are the panels that I worked on earlier. This is the one that I did with the new colour of the year, which is Journey, and then I've added the splatter behind it. Now I've kept all of these cards fairly simple. Hopefully the shimmer from the shimmer brush, that's a little bit harder to pick up on camera. I've added each of the owls here, and you can see that I've used a sentiment here that says just a little note to say, and then on the inside of each card there's either a thank you or there is a happy birthday. And these little strip sayings and the inside pieces, which have die cuts as well, are from our National Stamping Month Stamp and Thin Cuts All the Best Wishes. So you can see there's a lot of strips here that you can combine with these sentiments. And I love the flexibility of this sort of stamp set. And then the thank you, best wishes, hello, thinking of you, and happy birthday all have thin cuts to go with them. So you could put those on the front of a card just with these stenciled backgrounds, and that would work really, really well. This is the brightest one that I've done, and I love the depth of it. It does look different from all the other ones where I've purposefully gone for a soft feel, but I really do love the strength of this one and the color that brings out with the Royal and the Sundance. They make a really good color combination. You can see with all the card panels, they do have a white border around here, and I do love that look. I love the clean look of a white base and then popping the card panels that have been cut smaller up on foam tape just to give a little bit of dimension. Now I'll just move these off to the side a little bit. I also have a layout to share with you, and I really love playing with this brand new royal color, the richness of the purple, but also being able to get a lighter tone with it as well with the stenciling and not using a heavy hand with the brush. And then the rich purple coloring pencil just works really well with this royal color. So I thought I would stick with that with the theme of this scrapbook layout. So you can see I've gone purple overload in this one, but I have put a black title on here. I felt like it was just a bit much to go all purple. And the stamp set that I have used for this, I think came in an album retreat. It's Simple Stitched Alphabet. And this is why I love doing album retreats, because there are exclusive stamp sets, and I love the size of this alpha set. And this bracket in here is in this set as well. So if you did album retreat, I think it was the album retreat that we did around May, June this year that we got this set for, but I do love with album retreat that there are exclusive stamp sets, and I want to use them more with my scrapbooking. So when it came to doing this strip here, I have used that same heart stencil that I used on this card, but I wanted to make a continuous strip along it. All I've done is use the same color ink for this, so I've just used royal ink with a lighter hand and then flipped it over and a heavy hand, just like I did with this one that I did in the demo, but instead of using a contrasting color, I've used royal again, but blended it with a heavier hand. And I do love how that looks going across the page. Now there is a little bit of a trick to doing this, so I'll just move this off to the side and show you what I mean. And this is what you're trying to avoid happen. So when you put your stencil down, you do need to mask it off. I haven't masked that off quite well enough. So this is just green tape, and I'm going to secure each end like this and then do a very light hand. Then I need to take this away, clean off my stencil, clean both sides, dry it off, and then flip it over so that I can do the heavier blending with the darker shade. And I didn't mask this off properly when I did that. So I need to make sure that I go right up against here, and you can see that I got it right on my scrapbook layout finally. And then I need to mask off this end as well. And then I can go in with a heavier hand. It then sets me up for the next piece of stenciling because I've got this half a heart here. So after cleaning everything off, I can then flip my stencil again, line it up just like I'm doing here now, and then make sure that I mask off this edge so that I don't go over the edge to give me this little line here. And then I would mask off this side as well so that it's more forgiving when I come in with my blending brush, and then I would repeat it until I get this entire strip. Now this is cut at 3 inches by 12 inches. I could have made it a little bit taller and I could have done it direct to page, but I wanted to bring in the royal cardstock just to do a couple of little strips here to finish this off. Now you'll also see in the background here I have some very lightly blended hearts. So all I've done is positioned this over an area and done some blending. I haven't gone all the way up to the top and the bottom. I wanted to leave this so it faded out, and then I've cleaned off my stencil, flipped it over and done the other side. For this one, I tapped off with my brush just like I did when I was wanting the lighter hand on all these card panels here. And then without re-inking, when I reversed this, I went back in again. So the ink that was left on the brush is actually the lighter shade here. And then I've done exactly the same thing down in this area here. And you can see I've got two of the little owls here sitting on a branch. This is actually in the set as well. And it creates a great little point of interest for this page. So there are all of the projects that I've made with this month's Stamp of the Month. It is only available during October, so if you really love this, make sure you don't miss out. You can't purchase it any other month. I hope you've enjoyed these projects that I have created with this month's Stamp of the Month from Owl of Us. There are sentiments here that you can use on your cards, but I wanted to create some thank you cards, and I loved this little banner strip here that gives the perfect place for these little owls to rest so that they are not floating on the card. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, happy crafting and bye for now.